This video is going to be very fun to do because it seems as if there is this strange anger that has popped up inside the Nintendo community because it just seems like the Switch Pro probably doesn't exist. At this point, if you are hyped for the idea of a 4K Switch or something that can do like 100 frames a second in Mario Party, it's probably never going to happen. And it seems like a lot of Nintendo fans are starting to get downright angry about that. But let's dig into some mean tweets. What's up, gamers? Dreamcastguy here. So first and foremost, this morning there were two big announcements that took place. This one by Nintendo of America talking about a new model of the Nintendo Switch OLED, which is very cool and Splatoon themed. Now, it's not super great. It's got a couple like splashes of color, pun intended. I think it's neat in a way, but I'm not super hyped about it. Even as a Nintendo Switch owner, as somebody that loves Splatoon, I'm probably not going to buy this. Of course, the other big announcement today was obviously the fact that we're getting God of War Ragnarok this year. Heck yes, baby. I made a video separately about that if you want to see me scream about God of War Ragnarok. But what kind of struck me is that once I saw this tweet, I'm looking at it here like 3 hours later, almost all of the replies are universally negative. Now, a couple of my friends that are like big Nintendo Switch YouTubers, they're excited because it looks fresh, as OJ says here, but Switch Pro boys are in shambles. You can see somebody here replying with a picture of RGT85 looking incredibly pissed. Now, a lot of people here seem to be saying stuff like Splatoon is ruining Nintendo, which is a bonkers statement. People being like, oh yeah, there's no Nintendo Switch Pro, don't even think about it. Wow, we're finally getting the Nintendo Switch Pro, the Switch Pro Splatoon edition. Yeah, exactly. That awkward moment when fans convince themselves something is real despite no evidence and then get upset. Across the board, it seems like every single comment, instead of being about the system itself, is just about the fact that it's kind of shocking that we're not getting new hardware. Now, there's two separate reasons that people seem to be saying this. Now, first and foremost, let's take a look at this tweet that went viral yesterday because it sort of sums up why people are expecting a Switch Pro not only to exist, but to be revealed this month. So here it is. Nintendo has spent double their current budget on raw materials. So this is very, very strange. The only time they've really done this is whenever they're making a new console. It's them trying to do basically raw parts, essential assets, screen building, stuff like that, warehouse space to create a new line of electronics. Additionally, they've trademarked a new style of NSW, which means like Nintendo Switch. So it seems like maybe they are making some sort of new console someday somewhere, and they've also privated a bunch of their YouTube videos for the Switch Lite and the OLED. Now, typically when Nintendo does this, it's because they're revealing new hardware. Well, here's the deal. This was posted yesterday at 4 p.m., and now we have this fancy little icon here at 8 a.m. So it does seem like, for better or for worse, this is your Nintendo announcement. But I think it's funny because on the other side of the coin, I think a lot of people are expecting some sort of hardware refresh simply because the Nintendo Switch does seem a bit outdated now. Before we start to dig into a lot of the rumors into why I think people are so specifically hyped about a Switch Pro, let's take a second to thank the sponsor of this video. Hey there guys, this video is sponsored by Tommy John, the very best of sleepwear, loungewear, and underwear. Now obviously a lot of us are hardcore gamers. We're sitting here trying to worry about the next level, the next boss, or the next big achievement we're going to unlock. And a lot of times that comes down to focus. To me, one of the biggest distractions can be very bad quality clothes, which is why I'm happy that I have the ability to play wearing the very best, which is Tommy John. But it's not just for hanging out. Tommy John is good even when you're on the go, whether it is walking through fields, hanging out with your friends, playing a little bit of Game Boy, just anywhere you go. Like, I'll even wear it when I'm just sitting on the porch reading a book in a rainstorm and stuff like that. These clothes are clearly just there for peak performance, whether it is if you're trying to look stylish or innovative or just sit there and vibe out. Tommy John is definitely that. But if you're curious to try it for yourself, well, I've got good news. They gave me a very good coupon code to share with you awesome gamers. If you go down to the description box or type in this right here, Tommy John gave me a coupon code, which is Dreamcastguy. Type that in, you get 20% off your entire order and free shipping. Seriously, you will not regret it. This stuff is the best of the best of the best. Stay chill, stay breathable, stay stretchy with Tommy John. So the Nintendo Switch has been in a very different spot than the other consoles because honestly, as powerful as the Xbox Series X is and as insane as the PlayStation 5's exclusive catalog is, the Nintendo Switch just keeps outselling it, which is part of why I feel like there is this weird dynamic. I do play my Nintendo Switch quite a bit, I like my Nintendo Switch quite a bit, but I think we can all agree that objectively, the graphics of a lot of Switch games are not fantastic. They do have a sense of slightly blurry visuals to it, even if you're playing a game that manages to look pretty dang decent, like that new Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I love this game. I've played a lot of hours of it. I'm close to 100%ing it, but it doesn't look jaw-dropping. You know, it just looks like a very standard sort of old school style Nintendo game. I mean, this looks like something that could easily run on a Wii U. I mean, it's not that special, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem. But in this era where everybody is trying to push the boundaries of visuals, trying to do bigger, greater worlds, I do think that graphics do matter somewhat. Like, let's just say this. I'm not saying all graphics matter. I'm not saying games need to have photorealistic, crazy 4K visuals like God of War does, but I think a lot of the discussion around games like Pokemon Legends Arceus, which I did love a lot, or even something like obviously Breath of the Wild, there was a lot of talk about how this was a new generation of Zelda. This is something that stands apart, that's better, that's different, that's polished, that's funner than the other stuff. I do think that at some point, Nintendo has to be cooking up the next version of the Nintendo Switch, but I do not think it's going to be a Nintendo Switch Pro. I think it's probably going to be the Switch 2. Now, part of my thinking comes down to the fact that recently I've been playing a ton of Game Boy again. I'm going through and beating every single Pokemon. This is my little customized analog pocket. And while going through Game Boy to Game Boy Color to Nintendo DS to 3DS, something that kind of struck me is the fact that there are these jumps in technology and there are these jumps in budget. It feels like Nintendo tries to always worry about risk versus reward. How much should we spend on something that should be accessible, cheap to sell, and have decent enough graphics? Like straight up, the old DS screens were like 144p. They are the most muddy, garbledy-gook, but I think they realized that people would accept that for the time period. It keeps striking me while playing a bunch of Nintendo Switch ports, stuff like big, huge open world games that have been coded over to work on the Nintendo Switch, that it does seem like it could use extra juice. I'm not asking it to match the power and might of a PlayStation 5, but I do think that if they got a little bit closer to the PlayStation 4, that would not necessarily be a bad thing, especially if they keep it as a handheld. But at what cost? That's part of why I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is what we're going to get next year, is just because right now as it stands, Nintendo is so freaking cheap that even if they are making hundreds of billions of dollars, they're going to find a way to make the cheapest product possible and market it super well and then put all the good exclusives like Pokemon and stuff on it. Yesterday, I decided to tweet this out, and the tweet kind of blew up. I said, all this talk of a Switch Pro is awesome, but knowing Nintendo, it's going to be some dumb stuff like a Nintendo Switch Lite OLED, which I still think is going to happen, or a Switch with a cup holder built on it. And of course, all you freaks started saying that you want a Nintendo Switch cup holder. Oh my gosh, give me a Switch with a mouth hole. Sean, if you see this video, Jesus Christ, RGT85, look at this. Really convenient for those that need caffeine. Speaking of Sean, though, there just seems to be so much desire for new Nintendo hardware. Like even this, excuse the profanity, obviously Sean likes to be vulgar, but right here Sean is saying straight up that he wants this Nintendo Switch Pro so freaking bad. This is one of the biggest Nintendo Switch YouTubers, and he is clamoring just to see more hardware, more juice, more power to the Nintendo Switch. The primary reason that I believe we are not going to get a Nintendo Switch Pro and instead they're just going to wait to make a Nintendo Switch 2 is purely because of some of the things they tried to do with the 3DS. Like, I like the 3DS, but the new 3DS, to me, it didn't seem like the biggest success ever. That's why there wasn't a ton of exclusives to the new Nintendo 3DS. There was only a couple games here and there. And I feel like in the same effort, that's what they want to do as well. Right now, the Nintendo Switch is just so popular, even little shovelware games seem to sell ridiculously above and beyond expectations. So if Nintendo manages to find a way to keep selling the games we like, keep selling the games that we're craving, even if they look kind of muddy, and then later on when we get a Nintendo Switch 2, make games that are on that, I feel like they need to start a next generation instead of another stutter step. At least, that's my thought. What do you think about this? Are you excited for a Nintendo Switch Pro? Does this seem like a bunch of gobbledygook? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And please, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up. Let's see if this video can hit 2,000 likes. I love you guys very much. Please have a great day and keep dreaming. Also, thank you to Tommy John for sponsoring this video. I'm wearing my great undies right now. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.